This is Tony Berry with Infinity Info Systems. I want to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Joining me on the webinar is Bill Nagel, who's the Industrial Alliance Director at K2. So Bill and I'm the Managing Director at Infinity Info Systems, and today we're going to be going through this idea of no-code business app development, and we're going to be using K2 integrated with Microsoft CRM to show that. Everybody is muted at the moment, but at the end we will open up and actually can ask questions at any point through the chat section. At the end we'll have a Q&A section where Bill and I will stay on the line and answer any questions that folks might have. We're also recording the webinar today, so we'll be posting that in case you want to go back on any details. So first of all, Bill, let's check audio, so I'll make sure you're on okay.
I think I am.
Great. Sounds like the technology is behaving today. So what we're going to do, real simple agenda, we're going to do through introductions, which we just did. We're then going to talk a lot about no-code business apps using K2 and Microsoft CRM specifically. We're then going to show a couple simple demonstrations that kind of show the power of the two tools working together, and then we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So Bill, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for now and let you go through a little background on K2 and the platform, and then we'll jump into the demo.
I appreciate that, Tony. Thank you so much. I appreciate having this opportunity to present today to the audience that has joined us. Before we get into the demonstration, as Tony indicated, I want to give you an understanding of what the K2 platform is all about and where people find value within it. K2 is about building process applications. And the process applications, the business value comes from how efficiently they run, how consistently they run, and the insight that's gained by seeing what's going on within the business, where delays are, and having audit trails readily available. Now, all of those are fairly relatively obvious to any business person, and many BPM platforms do just that. The main differentiator of K2 to those other platforms is its flexibility and design capability, and we hope to show you some of that today through, again, our presentation. And we'll get back into the platform in just a second. But as far as the business value, I want to give you some tangible examples as far as how that is observed with K2 solutions. And there are two fronts in which speed is rendered on building K2 solutions. On one side, you have how quickly can you build applications, and we see this with clients that are trying to have IT keep up with business and adapt to business, changing business rules as time goes on. The other side is on a runtime perspective, and this is where you see true benefit in reducing the manpower to get work done, reducing time that is wasted in processing orders or system requests. Right? And there are a few examples I want to show you now that are examples of K2 case studies that you can look into as time permits. On Roche, they had several applications that they wanted to highlight with K2 or integrate with K2, and as a net result, the cycle times went from days to hours, right? And overall within their business. And the system, or the solutions here, had to do with travel requests and delivery of goods, right? So this is a line of business and back office applications. Additionally, SanDisk implemented an extensive pricing change application. So global organization, and prices determined at headquarters but fall down into the different regions. And so just the checks and balances in place with their old manual semi-automated system, getting the price changes out to the field took on the order of 2 weeks. Now with the automated K2 system, they're seeing price changes, decisions made in corporate trickle down to the field in as quickly as 30 minutes. So significant value add for a company that is trying to stay, and this, this has to do with electronic equipment that has short shelf life. So it's very important to stay consistent with the pricing models in different regions. Island Savings as well saw a tremendous reduction in cycle times with their loan origination process. it went from 3 days to 45 minutes. Now, so how's all this done in these systems? Well, specifically in the island savings solution, the reduction in time came from minimizing or removing any missing fields within the loan application. Because if it's manual, there's nobody to say, hey, this field is required before we can process. So they would go back and forth before the form was complete. In the electronic version, the form cannot advance to the next step before it's complete. And just by having that small check in the overall process, they were able to save this much time. Now, the time is fairly obvious based on what's on the screen. Within the case study, you'll see that they determined they're saving on the order of $1.6 million a year with value on that process. So how does all that happen? So one of the checks and balances I mentioned in putting rule sets in there. The other aspect and how and why K2 can provide so much value to companies is its integration capabilities and scaling capabilities and the visibility within the process. And so there's again a few different areas in which you'll see that. Within building systems, again, fairly easy to connect all these different disparate systems into one consolidated backbone, K2 process backbone, and becomes very easy to instantiate best practices within the business that are set within management, and then they're not determined by how well people remember protocol within the field. Additionally, there's a level of complexity that K2 processes can enable, integrating with different systems and bringing all that information together at the same time for people to review processes, and then once decisions are made within the process, the K2 system can update those external systems quickly. Now I'll go into the 4 pillars that you'll find within the K2 platform that enable all of this business value. We'll start with the data. The foundation is of any business process. When you're talking about system to system or human to system, human to human processes, is the data that is flowing through the process. And the process needs management that is done with workflow. How it's presented is done with forms. As a net result, you have all this insight into what's happening that is rendered through reports. And we'll show you some examples of how that is all brought together within the K2 platform. Now, the K2 data, within the system, we have this component called Smart Objects that will allow you to wrap information within this proxy and bring it into the process, bring it into reports, and bring it into forms. Right? So this is allows us to go in with the story of leave your data where it resides natively, and we'll bring it into the process. Now, that was always done in systems before K2 had this capability, but with the Smart Objects, we're not copying the data. It's truly a proxy or a handle into that data and where it resides natively. So you always have the most accurate data when you're making decisions, and this is also a two-way street. So once you make a decision and you want to update that system, honoring security protocol, you can update that backend system. And so this, those systems are databases, they're ERP systems like SAP, also web services can also be wrapped within this Smart Object technology. Now, hold that thought for a second, and we'll get into forms. Now, forms are very important because forms are the main point of entry to how people integrate or interact with systems that are running on a computer. And think about it, when you fill out an email, that's basically a form that you're filling out and clicking submit on. It's basically a one-step workflow for the most part. These forms, though, are awfully important because they bring together the information that people need to make decisions, and they're also, again, areas where you can update information to those backend systems. Now look at the information on this form, and to the end user, fairly straightforward, fairly simple, maybe fairly intuitive, right? But what's happening on this form behind the scenes that is enabled by K2 is there's data coming from several different systems that are brought up onto the screen. So that that same form now reduced, now you're seeing where that data is coming from. So the information in that top part of the form is actually live coming from Dynamic CRM, and you have you have a company selection dialog box on top there, where you may select one of the two companies that are listed. Based on either one of the two companies that are listed or selected, K2 will bring in information from other systems and bring it in and show it to the end user. One of the pieces of data is coming in from SAP. The other is coming in from SharePoint. Now, to the end user, they're not aware of that. All they know is that they are seeing all the information they need to make a decision. What we're doing is making it easier for them to make that decision based on the systems that are already in place. And this is done through not only having an easy way to create these forms, which we'll get into in just a moment, but tying into that with those back-end systems with that smart object technology. Now the forms, as you know, they're very important to maintain and enable for the end users. As a BPM company, our vision was to not only have an easy way to design processes, but an easy way to present UI to the end user. And the smart forms capability within the K2 technology is what enables that. And so no matter where your data resides and how you want to bring that into a process, the smart forms technology can enable you to design a process, design the fields that are relevant to the forms, and then once you determine that you need additional information within a particular view, that can be rendered within the different forms and easily managed within the versioning of the process. Now, when we think forms and we're viewing today, we're most likely viewing on a laptop or a desktop, but as the technology has evolved, we have people needing to make decisions as they're away from the computer, and the forms technology is all the more important to be able to render on those devices. So think about making decisions on your desktop, but then you have people in the field, service technicians, clinical technicians, that need to record and take action on stuff that's happening in the field, either on their tablet or phone device, right? And there's also K2 capability on that front as well. Getting back into process design, one of the differentiators of K2 is the extent of the designers that we have offered. There are several, but fundamentally, we enable the high end of the business analyst, somebody who says, hey, I understand the business process, give me the tools to render that process within a GUI interface. And then we have the developer. He understands how all the different systems come together. He maybe has a deeper understanding of coding, and he has enabled to him on the diagram on the left, say a designer enabled within Visual Studio. So it leads with design, but when and if needed, you could get down to the code level. Now, as that is all brought together in the design environment, there are levels. Besides just the process design, there are levels of added value into the process design to make sure that the process is occurring efficiently. Validation rules. As we mentioned with the loan origination process, if we can make sure that the form is filled out correctly, we can expedite the process and can reduce errors. That is done with validation rules created within the forms that are running within the process. And that's also set within the designer. Now you can also have escalations that are determined where there are humans that are set to respond, and you want to make sure they respond in time. You can define escalations so that they're reminded, and then if there's a further delay, a reminder can go to the manager. Maybe that user is out of office, and then that manager can actually redirect that task manually to another person that is on staff, if needed, if the case is relevant. Now, as all of that is running within the system, in real time, everything is tracked within the K2 backend system running on SQL. And that permits us to have instant access into what's going on within the system. On the top left is actually a view flow diagram, which is the design schematic for the workflow with color coding, real-time color coding. It's an animation that shows you where we are in the process, what steps have completed, what paths were not followed, what paths were followed. And if it's currently outstanding, you can see further detail on that step, who it's assigned to. On the other reports, you're seeing an understanding of where the delays are within the process, how long users are taking to respond, where average response times are within each step. And all of this is available within real time and can be averaged across a set of workflows that have run for the week, for the month, for the year. And so again, all of this is available for real time. So think about, I call reports the daily news for the business, because you can see everything that's going on. So departmental owners, departmental managers really appreciate this insight that they can gain within the process. So these are some of the fundamental components of K2. And so what we'd like to do now is have Tony run through a demonstration so you can see the stuff in action. Tony?
Great. Thanks, Bill. Yes, if you'll push control to me, I'll just see if I can grab it. There we go. And Bill, just to check and make sure you're seeing my screen, or?
I am. Demo
Great.
to user scenarios, yep.
Yep, okay, great. So Bill, thank you for giving the overview on K2. Great job of compressing an extremely robust product into 15, 20 minutes. Gave you a bit of a challenge today. So what I thought I would do, and I'll kind of tie into some of the stuff that Bill went through, and we'll use just two very common user scenarios. That's one of the interesting things that we're learning with K2 is its applicability is really limitless. And so we thought we'd show just kind of two very common use scenarios for K2, but there are a lot more. Actually, we have another webinar on Thursday. If anybody's interested, where we're going to be showing a couple more of these user scenarios. And again, we'll be recording that for folks to get a chance to attend that one. But the demo is going to focus on expense claims, so a very simple expense claim submission, but actually integrating that with client information out of CRM, essentially on the scenario of tracking whether expenses are billable or not. Then we're going to go into a pretty robust business app around proposal generation, which we've found is a real common pain point for a lot of customers, is automating that proposal process. And we're even going to be showing, again, on Thursday, possibly some signature capture associated with that. So there's kind of an end-to-end life cycle around proposals and contracts. Bill used a couple terms, and I'll be using the same in the demo. He talked about runtime experience. That's really the user experience of K2, so we'll spend a good deal of time on that. The real benefit there is the use scenarios are really, I call it anywhere you need it. So on your mobile device, in a portal, inside CRM, we'll show all of those kind of runtime experiences. Then there's the design time experience, and because this is a no-code product, I thought it would be important to show some of that configuration as a designer or configurator, the way you actually build these solutions for the user. Then going to show a little bit about line of business integration. This, we think, is the real differentiator of K2 versus the other solutions that are out on the market. They have a patent around the way they actually connect into other line of business systems. So we'll be showing a couple today. We're going to be showing Microsoft CRM. We're going to be showing SharePoint. We'll be showing Microsoft Office and Active Directory. But the ability to connect into line of business systems is literally infinite. And so I'm only showing 4 of what is, literally hundreds of line of business endpoints that are available for K2. Then we'll just talk through kind of general other capabilities. So with that, I'll start on the first demo, and we're going to talk through expense claims. And the user experience goals on this one are really to simplify that user experience, just to make it very simple to submit an expense claim, but to pick up the client information from CRM, then walk through an approval workflow. K2 has being from a BPM background, has a deep workflow engine, so we'll show a workflow that walks through 2 levels of approval on the expense claim, and then talk about the fact that this is available on the mobile device via portal, wherever you need to get to this expense claim capability, you have that option available to you. So I'm going to pull over. And Bill, just to make sure again that everything's working, are you seeing the Microsoft CRM screen now, or?
I am seeing what looks to be okay, sorry. It is CRM. I thought it looked
great. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure screens are sharing okay. I'm in a couple environments today, so just want to make sure things are displaying. So we're looking at a standard out-of-box CRM screen at this point. So we're just looking at accounts. But what I'm now going to show is how we can use K2 to actually integrate with this client information coming out of CRM. And the scenario is I'm a professional services individual. I travel to clients. In some cases, my expenses are billable. In some cases, they're not. And I want to be able, when I come back from a trip, be able to submit a simple expense claim attach the receipts, and then if it is associated with a client, actually attach that client information from within the simple expense claim app. And so what I'm going to show you real quickly, and we'll first focus on this from a runtime or a user experience, then I'll show you how things are pinned together in the back end. So basically this is set up for me to either hit from a portal or from my mobile device. In this case I've chosen to go to a portal. I just basically click my hyperlink for create new expense. It pops me right to this expense form, and I can then start to submit it. Hopefully I've either scanned or I've got my expense information available to me at this point. And a couple things you'll notice when I've clicked in. The first thing is it knows who I am because I've already logged into the domain, and so from an Active Directory standpoint, it understands that in this case I'm Barry Hoffman. I've signed in. It's already gone over to Active Directory and pulled back all of my basic information. Knows who my manager, knows who my manager is, and knows what department I work for, and obviously it knows what the date is. And now I can start filling out my expense claims. Well, the first thing you'll see that actually reaches out, and exactly like Bill was showing in his example, this form is pulling from a couple different places. It's pulling data from Active Directory. And just a second, I'm going to show you information pulling from CRM. And then down at the bottom is things just being stored in a standard SQL database. And then eventually it's going to go over actually the finance group and then plug into the AR system, the accounts payable system, as they actually reimburse the employees for expenses. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm coming back from a trip, and this is a trip where I met with a client. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go search and find that client. What just happened when I hit that button, this is an idea of one of those smart objects that Bill was talking about. This has now gone over and connected into CRM, and now I can just do a simple search. And so I know the company I've met with was Affordable Equipment. So I just type in A, I hit return. You can see it's actually gone and queried those accounts that I was just showing you in CRM. And so this was an expense associated with a visit to Affordable Equipment. I'm just going to click on them and click OK. What it's actually done behind the scenes is it's pulled over a couple of the key information associated with Affordable Equipment out of CRM. So it's going to store that key ID, GUID, CRM calls it, in this actual expense report. Then I can actually describe the expense report. And this was a client visit to review a solution and test. And the thing I want to do in the additional notes is I just want to let the finance folks know that this was billable, so this is something that they should actually be invoicing the client for. And then I'm going to add my expense claim items. So what I'm going to do is basically it's got a little wizard front, and so let's just say this was my airline. And so I went to US Air. It was $525. I want to actually click the type that it was airfare. And then I actually want to attach a scanned receipt. So I'm just going to click here and say click to attach. I'm going to go grab my PDF that I've already got on my desktop. And so you can see it's actually added that to it. And then at this point, I just want to basically click Add Item. And what you're going to see is it's added now that first item to my expense claim. I can go and do another one. In this case, let's say that this is my hotel. And I want to say the amount was $233. It was a type lodging. Same thing. I want to attach the lodging. If I have that receipt, there we go, pressed in. And same thing. In this case, I want to put here meals were included, let's say. And then click that item. So at this point, what I've got, actually, again, as I mentioned, is Active Directory, CRM, some stuff from the database, and actually file attachments all pulled in to a business app built with a form in K2. In just a minute, we'll come back and look at this. It's totaled everything for me. And now I'm going to fire off a workflow for approval. And so I'm going to hit this Submit Expense Claim button. What that actually does is it went and it actually looked at who my manager was, found it, and actually started the workflow, which I'll show you in just a second. And it gave me a little indicator that it's been submitted. Now I'm taking a little liberty here, and I'm going to flip over through the demo. I'm now going to be looking at the manager's console. So Barry just submitted this expense. You'll see at the bottom, I just got an email, and I'll explain what that is in just a second. But essentially, I just submitted this. And now I'm looking at as Barry's boss. And so I can basically see all the expense reports that have come in to me actually for approval. So just like Barry, I could go to a portal to do this, but actually I would prefer to just do it through email. And so as I'm sitting in my email, one of the things that K2 is able to do is something they call Smart Actions. So it's actually able to integrate with Outlook. And what it's done is it's actually sent me an email. And so it sent me this email saying, hey, here's the expense report that we'd like you to review. Normally I would have put the PDF attachment here too so I could actually open it and review it, or I can actually click this hyperlink and that will take me to it also. But what I'm going to do is I know that Barry's very good at expense reports, so I'm just going to go ahead and approve this. And I'm going to type the word approved. Now what's happening through the Smart Action capability is rather than me having to go to a portal, actually respond and action the workflow, I'm able to do it right here from email. So I just hit the word approved, return it, and now what K2 is going to do, because it's integrating with Outlook, it's going to read that email, and in a few minutes it's going to come back on that expense report, and it's going to be as if I had actually done it directly from this view. So just to kind of watch and monitor that, as you can see right now, it's saying the status of available. Now let's actually go look at the workflow real quick while we're waiting for that to come back. This is the actual flow. So one of the other nice things that K2 does is it gives you a visual view of the actual approval process. And so in this case, when I, as a user, update the expenses, when I hit that submit button, and then you can see the approvals coming through, I can then basically start that approval process. All the data carries with the workflow. It then went to the first approver, and if you don't know if everybody knows that, but it actually changed while we were sitting here, and it actually, this path became green for approved, and this path became declined. So my email got accepted, the workflow actually got updated, and now it's going down this path to the finance department, and then ultimately once finance processes it, a check will actually be cut, and in this case an invoice will be generated for the client. So the workflow is automated, and we can actually action it from email, mobile, portal, however we want to get to it. So let's go back now that that's actually occurred, and let's go look at our little portal here. So notice right now this says available. If I refresh the screen, what we should see in just a second, oh, it helps you go to the right one. Let me come back. Yeah, what we'll see in a second is that just got approved, and I just lost my screen. What happens is that got approved, and then we'll actually, in a second, we'll see that come over to finance. Hopefully I didn't just lose that. And then finance can actually process that expense report. Let's get it this way. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and submit another one just so we can get to that second screen. And here we can actually see those two available. And in this case, it's actually setting over here for finance to approve it. And then I've actually submitted the second one. So now as a finance manager, I can actually go in, and instead of going to email as the finance manager, I'm actually going to open it right here from the portal. So I'm going to hit Open Tabs. And in this case, what you'll see is I get a representation of the actual expense report that Barry submitted. The field's actually locked down because he's already updated all of these. And then a new panel gets added at the bottom. And so in this case, unlike using email, I can actually action it from here. And now what you're going to see is what I'm able to do is different than what the manager was. So in this case, I just signal that I've actually processed it. I'm going to hit Process and Submit. So again, this would be somebody in the finance department doing that. And now what we'll see is that one has actually been removed from the overall workflow. And then this one here is setting for somebody to actually process it. So in this case, I can open this. The portal's not behaving. I'm saying hopefully we get just the idea of how that actually is processing. So I was able to work through that expense report both as a manager and then actually the finance department, and you'll notice the actions that we each got were different. So let's take a second and look how that's put together inside K2 from a design perspective now, or a runtime experience. How is this all put together? So one of the tools that you use with K2 when you're building these as a configurator or a designer is you use something called the K2 Designer. And what we'll see here is the K2 Designer allows you to build multiple of these types of solutions. In this case, I'm looking at the expense claim solution that we were just looking at. And as Bill was mentioning, that consists of forms, smart objects, views, and workflows. So those are all your components associated with this. So let's go look at one of the forms. And let's go look at this Create New Expense form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. And we'll actually take a look at the form, and you'll see this looks very much like that first form that I came in as a user. So here's my details, here's my expense details, and there's my expense claim items. And each of those are those views that Bill was talking about that you can actually reuse. And you'll see this one gets reused in that first approval, and second approval as it goes over to finance. This same view is reused. When it goes over to finance, it actually gets locked down, so the fields become read-only, but the same view is being used. So it's a very simple drag and drop interface for building these views. In addition, you have the workflow capability, and I'll go to that real quick. And so here actually is that workflow that's running behind that form, and you'll see that looks an awful lot like the view flow that we were looking at. And so as you can see here actually is the workflow. Now when I'm in the designer, I'm actually able to interact with the workflow, change things like the rules associated with it, who approves, what actions we'll take, how I'm going to interface with various systems. As Bill mentioned, you have all these smart objects that are available to you, so I have this ability to go into different systems, CRM being one of those, and so I can actually get to different information through this workflow, and it's all wizard-driven. So here you can see some of the CRM capabilities are set up. So there's how I get into CRM 2011. Here's how I get into an older version, CRM 4. So I have the ability to interchange what we'll see in a minute with SharePoint and Active Directory and other things. So it's all wizard-driven, no code written here at all to build these workflows and to actually interact with this expense planning system. So again, that was a very quick review of a fairly straightforward form and workflow process associated with expense claim. Had really light integration into CRM. What I thought I would do now is I'll bring up the second example that gets much more detailed and much more involved in the way that it actually integrates with CRM. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at actually proposal management. And the user experience goals here were, again, to simplify that user experience. This is going to integrate much deeper with CRM, and it's actually going to be available in multiple places. So not just a portal, but also within CRM itself, and then actually within mobile. And what's really interesting is these same forms, these same workflow, these same reports, charts work in all three of those environments without making changes. In fact, the business apps with K2 are smart enough that they know when they're embedded inside another application to actually change their configuration. And we see this within CRM. Essentially, there's some things when you work with proposals that when you're outside of CRM, you want to be able to search, but when you're inside, you actually know what accounts you're already on. So it's the idea of a smart form that can actually adapt itself to its environment. We'll also spend a little bit more time on this one on the back end because this one is now not only automating the front end of proposals, but actually automating the back end of it. It's using Word templates. It's got dashboards for actually monitoring performance, and then it tightly integrates with SharePoint, which is where it's actually going to store all of the proposal documents. And it really provides a foundation for other templating needs. If you have contracts, signatures, like we do agreements to proceed at Infinity, so all of your different type of contractual and legal agreements could actually be automated with this type of process, not just proposals. And by the way, it does use standard Word templates too. One of the nice things is K2, because they're based on Microsoft technologies, integrate quite deeply with all of the Microsoft components. So let me pull over my second view here. So same thing, I'm going to show both runtime and design time experience. So in this case, what I've done is I've logged on again to a portal, and I've come into a portal to actually build a proposal. So in this case, I'm outside CRM. I'm going to show you in a minute actually doing this with inside CRM. But in this case, I'm going to build the proposal from here, but very similar to the way we did expense claims, it's going to integrate with CRM. But what I want everybody to look at real quickly too is the way this form looks like. This is again a smart form. We're going to use the same form in multiple places, and you're going to see it looks different each place that we use it. That's this idea of it being able to adapt to where it's being used from. So just like before, it understands who I am, understands I'm Barry Hoffman, my email address, etc. And now what I'm going to do is it's actually integrating with SharePoint. So hard to tell, but when I hit that little drop down, what it actually did is it went over to SharePoint, and it's actually got a list of all the document types or content types that are available to me for proposals. So in this case, I've got two. I'm going to open up this expert selling proposal, and I'm going to actually give this a title. So let's just say that we want to call this sample proposal, so we can find it later, and we're going to give it a subtitle of sample. What I can also do is I can now pick a due date. So let's say this proposal is due on the 31st. One of the things you'll notice is it's got rules behind it. All the forms can have rules, and it's actually updated the date. So it set everything out 30 days, and it's saying it's valid for a year. So it's doing some of that type of calculations. I could enter notes here, so if I wanted to actually insert free-form text or things that were maybe not part of the proposal template, I can actually key those here. this bottom part's really important because what this is doing is it's the same as we saw in the expense claim report. It's going to look up over into CRM. So in this case, I'm going to open up this drop down. I'm going to do the same sort of search I did before. So I'm just going to type in A. And again, it's come back that same list out of CRM that we saw before. And I'm going to pick this one. Let's just do another bicycle company. And I'm going to click OK. And one of the things that this is doing that's a little bit different than we saw in the expense claim one is this is also looking at contacts within CRM. So what it's done is it's pulled back the account. It then looked at the contacts, and it's pulled back. In this case, I've only got one, but if I had 10 different contacts at that account, it would actually let me pick who this proposal is going to be directed to. Now I'm going to hit Next, and what this is going to start to do is walk me through a wizard of building the proposal. Behind the scenes, it's actually talking to both CRM and SharePoint at the same time. So the first thing it's done is it's gone over to SharePoint and said, okay, what document templates are available for this proposal based upon this client and the client type. So in this case, I'm going to pick Environmental Solutions, and I'm actually going to pick the National Accounts Overview document. So those are the two components I want to have put in my proposal. So you can see those go from the left screen to the right. It's just wizard-driven, and if I actually click on one of these, I can open up the document and take a look at it. See if I can do that real quick. And what that just did is it went over and it found that what's called a content type or document type over in SharePoint, and it's actually displaying it back for me. And if you know SharePoint, you can actually see it open it up in SharePoint for me. Although as a user, I don't have to worry about that. I have to find the document in SharePoint, which we probably all know can be a challenge sometimes. I'm going to hit Next, and now it's giving me the next set of the templates, which is basically personalization on my business unit. And I actually want to grab this one from Arizona, because that's actually what we're going to do the work. I'm going to hit Next. What you're going to see now is it's come to the last stage. And by the way, this could be a long process if you had multiple types of documents and a wizard that you wanted to walk through based upon the different client types. So here it's showing me the documents. It's showing the way the proposal is going to be created. And I can actually now add images if I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go grab some images. And I want to just go let's grab a simple one. Let's see, I want to grab this roof replacement. And I actually want to upload it. Oh, that one already exists. Okay, we'll get that back. Let's grab another one. Let me grab this one. Hopefully that one's not already loaded up. There we go. So you can see here are all of the images that are loaded for this proposal. And I can actually, when I click on them, what K2 is doing is, again, because it's able to integrate so well, it's going and grabbing those images and then displaying them in the right panel for me. I can even go in, if I had multiple documents, I can pick where I want those images to go. So let's just say I want this one to go here, and I want this one to actually go here. So now I'm picking where they're going to be placed within the image, and then I'm actually going to generate the proposal. So again, what it's doing here is it's now taking information from K2 stored within it for the proposal, from CRM, from actually SharePoint, and it's now actually building a proposal document in the back end. And it's actually going to put this over in CRM against their account record, and we'll see that in just a second. Now, normally you wouldn't show this type of panel, but I'm doing it here so we can actually see the process progress. And as you can see right now, the process says status. Just like the other application behind this, a large workflow is running. So as you can see, as I hit refresh, this actually went pretty quick, but it went through about 6 steps. We'll show the process in just a minute. And it actually built the proposal. And I can also go, just like I could in the other one, I can pick up client information. I can actually look at that proposal if I want. So here it is actually built over in SharePoint with that first image that I put into it. It's dropped in text, it's signed it, etc. And it's actually grabbed all that information and actually generated that over in SharePoint for me. So you can see the process actually fully automates, and I did all this without ever having to log into CRM. So that's from the portal side. What I thought I would do now is I'm going to actually go on the CRM side and show what this would look like, because obviously when I'm in CRM, I don't want to log into a portal. I actually want to generate the proposal from within CRM. So same exact K2 solution. We're now going to embed it inside CRM, and we'll see the form will actually change, and even its style can change if we want it to. So in this case, I'm looking at my opportunities in CRM, and here's all my open opportunities, and I actually want to generate a quote for this potential client for Coca-Cola. It's for headquarters re-roofing. So I click OK. And what you're now going to see is I open up a standard CRM opportunity screen, but if you'll notice here in the middle, what it's actually pulling up is that same smart form that we were displaying when we went in through the portal. But two major differences. One, it turned off the logo. So there's no logo being shown at this point because obviously that's wasted real estate inside CRM. The other thing you'll notice, that bottom panel, that search panel, is not there. Obviously, when I'm inside CRM, it already knows who the client is, and therefore there's no reason for me as a user to actually do a lookup on it. So it's smart enough to actually pre-embed that this is Coca-Cola and that it's a headquarters re-roofing project. And then from there, I can walk through the same wizard and actually build that proposal. So I'm not going to do that here. I've already done that. But what I thought I would show you is how this also integrates from a SharePoint standpoint back into CRM, using some of those inherent capabilities with the Microsoft integration between SharePoint and CRM. So it's really nice because K2 understands both CRM and SharePoint and where things should be located, naming conventions, common keys, etc. What it actually was able to do when it generated that proposal over in SharePoint, it also linked that SharePoint to the customer record in CRM, actually the opportunity record in this case. So I'm on Coca-Cola's record. This is that actual proposal that was generated, and this is coming right out of SharePoint. It's actually using the SharePoint integration to actually display that. If you didn't have SharePoint, this could be an attachment against the CRM document. But in this case, we did have it, and then I can actually open the document from here. And it's actually open at the bottom. And I'm actually opening it from within inside SharePoint, so I can actually see it from there. So that kind of gives you a quick idea of what the capabilities and the integration within CRM are. What I thought I'd show now is there's a third way of actually accessing this, and that would be via the iPad. So I can do the same thing. So in this case, I can log in. I'm using iPad Peak. Everybody's familiar with it. It's an iPad simulator, but this looks the same on the iPad. So here, just like I went to the portal, I hit this location within the iPad. It's totally touch-enabled, and I've got a very similar interface to what I have when I went to the portal, but it's actually resized for the change in resolution associated with the iPad. Same thing, same interface. Everything else is the same. When I'm all done, this will generate that proposal. It will show up against the contact record, the opportunity record over in CRM. So I've got that same function and capability there. So that's a real quick overview of the user experience of the proposal management side. I'm going to take just a couple minutes and show the back end of this, which is a bit more complicated. So I won't dig into it in a great deal of detail, but I'll at least show what it looks like so everybody can get a feel for it. So the first thing is, you can see, just like we showed before, from a design time experience, I've got all the parts. So basically the forms, the views, the smart objects, and the workflow are all stored within the designer. You can see I've got a lot more. I've got a lot more views, a lot more forms, a lot more smart objects. Obviously, I'm integrating with a lot more systems in this case. But again, everything associated with that solution is contained within this folder and can actually be released and managed from a code standpoint and actually deployed in a test and then moved over to development, et cetera. The other thing that this is doing is it's integrating with SharePoint. So let me show you with this concept of Word document templates. And so this is the actual template. And you can see the template is just a boilerplate. Basically, it's got content sections where we can actually update the text, insert other documents into this master document. What's nice is if I change the master document, then the workflow can actually pick that up and understand how to build it. You've then got a much larger workflow than what we had in the expense claims system associated with this. So these workflow items are much more involved, and there's sub-steps within each task. So again, a lot more complicated workflow than we looked at before, but the same idea in terms of the workflow components. And then finally, it's integrated over into SharePoint in this way. You've got proposal sections. So these are all of those documents that we were reading. And you can see each of these have a type. So as I walk through the wizard, K2 knows how to bring those various content documents over as I walk through the wizard. And then what it's doing is it's actually creating folders. And let's go find that one we just did. which should be called sample proposal. There it is. So each time you generate a new proposal, it takes that title, subtitle, and client and actually keeps an archive of it. So here are all of the template documents that were pulled over. This is for historical purposes. And then the actual document itself is right here. Remember, that's the one we opened up before. And because this is very organized, CRM is also able to find it in these same folders. So it's using the power of the current line of business tools and then really wrapping K2 around it to provide you that capability. So as Bill was explaining, it's really taking this idea of forms, data, workflow, and reports, combining them with this great ability to integrate with line of business systems and then solving specific business opportunities or problems and creating this idea of business applications, really powered by K2 and integrated with your other systems. So with that was really the end of the demo that I had for today. I think the next section is to open this up for questions. And Matt, I don't know if you're on the line still or...
I am. If anyone has any questions, there's a question box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you just enter your questions there, I'll be glad to read them out and get them answered for you.
So we'll hold on for just a second to see if any questions come in. Bill, what I'm seeing is that it looks like somebody wants to know a little bit of the history on K2, how long you guys have been in business. And
No, sure. It's a great question. Been in business since around 2001. Previously, we were a service company like Infinity, and we had a propensity for solving solution problems, and we were doing it so often that decided to change from a services company to a software company that had configuration as the lead foundational component of design, and that's been a central theme of K2 since the very beginning. And K2 has been associated with the Microsoft platform since the very beginning. What you're seeing today is the rendition of the full value proposition envisioned by our founders within K2 to have not only configurable workflow, but configurable UI and configurable data integration, and just with the end result of enabling true BPM value, but have that manageability be very high.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. And Matt, I think I saw a couple more coming in. Can you see those? Or
Yes, we do have a couple questions online. I apologize for the sirens. We do have a couple questions online. One of them is, can these be generated as PDFs?
I'm assuming what they mean is the forms of the documents. Yeah, absolutely. One of the new, and somebody you can speak to, one of the new smart objects that K2 just recently came out is not only a PDF converter, but actually taking the form itself and turning it into a PDF. So if you are on a mobile device, you can actually open up a representation of the form that's in PDF.
And another question that I have on here is about the base technology around K2. Is it .NET, Java?
It's .NET. It's .NET. When you go behind the scenes of the one designer that enables you to see code, you'll see Workflow Foundation, you'll see C#. The requirements for installing K2 are a Windows server and a SQL server, and the Windows server needs to have IIS enabled. With those three technologies enabled, you can run and install K2. SharePoint, CRM, SAP, all other technologies can be integrated into K2 through the Smart Objects technology.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm not a developer in Infinity, but I know our developers like that a great deal because if you ever do need to write code for connecting into other business systems, as an example, it's a standard .NET coding approach. So I know our developers were quite pleased with that.
And what's compatibility with CRM 2013, and is the K2 portal external facing?
2013 integration is forthcoming. The question on portal integration, could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the question was, is the K2 portal external facing?
K2 portal external facing.
Oh,
so, do you know if that is?
Facing? Yeah, so I think I'm assuming what the question is can the K2 forms and the portals be internet facing? Like terms ADFS, and yes, they can. Actually, what I was showing there today was a public. It's a secure portal, but it is an internet-facing portal that I actually signed into. That's why I pulled the image of it.
No, thank you, Tony. And to that point, some of the this is where we've seen some of the greatest work that we've seen in the field recently has been done by Infinity and has been on extranet portals, and where it's an internal business process that's running, but you're integrating vendors and clients into your business process, but doing that in an automated way, and you're seeing all that value being rendered.
And one of the things we Infinity like about K2, because it's using standard Microsoft technologies. The way you do that portal is a standard IIS type portal. So as everybody probably knows, you have to be very careful as you set up internet-facing portals to make sure that you have proper authentication and security and DMZ and firewall, et cetera. And K2 supports that because it's using standard Microsoft approaches for that. Matt, any others come in, or?
Not that I'm seeing. If there are any other questions, I guess I'll give one last call for questions. Otherwise, I guess that's all.
Great. So I just wanted to personally thank everybody for attending today. Really, looks like we might have just gotten, do we use ADFS? Did I see that question come through, or?
Yes, actually, that does seem like it just.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, that is one of the options of the way of deploying K2. And if somebody specifically needs more information on that, we can get our IT and infrastructure team at Infinity to answer those specifically.
And I do have one last question here, and it's, does K2 require MSCRM on-premise as opposed to CRM online?
It currently will work with MSCRM on-prem and MSCRM online.
We've had great success with both. So, great questions.
Great. All right. Well, that seems like all. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you out. Otherwise, thank you, Tony and Bill, for presenting with us today. And have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.